Orlando's rental market has been shifting. The question is, are you ready? Rental rates have been soaring, but now we're seeing a reduction in those rents. With new developments, rising inventory, and shifting demand, Central Florida's rental landscape is changing. As a property owner, you need to know what's happening. Let's break this down. Hi, I'm David Weber from State Property Management. We've helped many landlords like you navigate the ins and outs of property management in Orlando and the Central Florida area. As both a property manager and investor, I know the ins and outs of this business. Let's dive in and set you up for success. Why is my property not renting? What's happening to rental rates in Central Florida and the Orlando area? These are questions I get each and every day by investors, by people who call into our office. And I try to explain to them what's happened. And it's a very complex situation that's happened over time. If you look back during COVID, when everyone was shut in, Florida wasn't shut down as long as many other states were. But at the time, there were businesses that closed. There were people obviously couldn't go to work, non-essential people, only essential jobs, could stay employed. And even then, many people would work remotely from their homes. During that time, a lot of the hospitality industry, which is huge here in Orlando, they were shut down. So they had to lay off or send their employees home. They couldn't come to work. And these were mandates that were put in place by governments. These people who were at home and not working could go on an unemployment. And Florida offers $275 a week for unemployment. And you may ask, why am I talking about unemployment? But this will help you understand and lead to where we are today in the current rental market. People staying at home have a mandate to look for work and to search for work. During COVID, that mandate was taken off and people didn't have to prove that they were searching for work. In addition, the federal government, through an Employment Protection Act, I don't know if that's the exact word, I'm going from memory here, but they offered $600 a week in addition to the Florida $275 a week. So people that were at home that were affected by the lockdowns and the shutdowns in COVID were making about $875 a week take home. For Florida, that's $22 an hour. In the restaurant industry, be getting $15 an hour, $12 an hour at the time. Obviously, since pre-COVID, hourly wages have increased. However, prior to COVID, $10, $12, $15 in the restaurant industry. If you were a server, if you were working in the kitchen, that was your rate at the time, your hourly rate. And here during COVID, with the assistance from the federal government and the state government, people were making almost $22 an hour at home. And I think you might remember going into or have experience going into a restaurant at that time. Once the lockdowns were over, you wanted to go into a restaurant and there was an hour and a half lineup. You got into the restaurant and the restaurant was empty. What's going on here? So at the time, we would ask what's going on. And they said, well, we don't have the staff to staff the restaurant. We can only open half of it. Well, I got to thinking, and what I'm telling you here is my opinion. And from what I see, again, this is my opinion, but it's what I saw, what was going on here in this Orlando and Central Florida area. And people earning $22 an hour staying at home or going and without a mandate to find a job, going to work, they'd maybe get $15 an hour. What makes sense to stay at home? So employers were having difficulty finding staff. During this time, the federal government also gave the states rent relief funds for COVID. And Florida, obviously the third largest state in the United States, received about $1.7 billion in funding. And that was distributed through a program called My Florida. And anyone could apply for this. And we had many tenants applying for this, and they were approved. And we had tenants that were having their rent paid for 12 months. So not only were they having their rent paid, they were making $22 an hour at home. During this time, builders were building kept on building apartments. We had people moving in from the Northeast and the West Coast that were working remotely, so it didn't matter where they lived at the time, coming into Florida, and they could get here for $2,000 a month, which cost $4,000 to $5,000 a month on the West Coast or the Northeast. And because people were locked down, not moving, there was little inventory, and this caused rental rates to rise and rise significantly. And when it came to renewing leases, our current tenants, the local people here in Florida that were living here in Florida, were making more money than they were used to in their job, kept on renewing at the higher rates. And also we found that multifamily apartment owners were selling their properties based on pro forma rent, on doing value add and improvements to their communities in order to, and buying them based on a future rent increase as rental rates were kept increasing like crazy. Well, all of this eventually came to an end. The fund dried up, the My Florida fund dried up. People had to go to work, back to work. And here, when they originally qualified for rent for their apartment, their rent was 3 times their income. And based on the federal subsidies and the unemployment they were getting at $22 an hour, their rent, they would qualify for their rent. However, when they went back to work and no longer made that $22 an hour, they found it difficult to keep up with the rent. And as a result, we found about, I'd say in late 2023 and most of 2024, in the history of our business, and we've been in business since 2011, we've never had so many evictions that we've experienced and people delinquent in their rent as we did during that time. We found that people were consolidating their homes. They were just abandoning their leases, moving into with family members to try and be able to afford the rise in the rents. So basically, we ended up having a rent bubble here in Florida. Again, this is my opinion, but we had a rent bubble. And now we're starting to see a correction in those rents. We're seeing rental rates drop. And we've seen them drop 20, 30% in some areas. And at some levels, we find that the higher, more expensive rentals, they drop more than the lower price rentals. But we see it all across the board. And this, in a nutshell, is what happened. Now we have a lot of inventory on the market, and we're back almost to times. I'm not predicting, I'm not saying we're having a recession, but during the recession in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, especially at the end of it, 10, 11, and 12, we saw properties sitting on the market for rent, 30, 60 days. We had to offer incentives. We had to offer, whether it be a month rent free or zero down payment or zero deposit. There was a lot going on back then. And we see that similar market right now, but rental rates are stabilizing. But you have to understand, if you don't price your property correctly, it's going to stay on the market for a lot longer. Tenants are savvy about the prices. They know what the market rates are out there. So now that the market's correcting itself because we have an oversupply in the market, and you have landlords competing with each other to get tenants for their property. And I have to laugh because whoever said, we need rent control in the government, you don't need rent control because the market corrects itself. And this is a prime example. So I hope that helps you understand what's happening with the rental market here in Central Florida. It's still a great place to invest. It's still an awesome place to own an investment property. It's a growing metropolis. Central Florida is a growing region, some of the fastest growing areas in the country, and it's a great place for a rental. However, you have to know where rental rates or why rental rates are going, and I hope I've been able to explain that to you. It's been great again, and I look forward to the next time that we can provide information to you. By the way, we work with landlords like yourself all the time, helping you navigate everything from vendor management to routine maintenance. If you're feeling overwhelmed or just want expert support, that's exactly what we specialize in at State Property Management. We manage property, and that's all we do, and we do it well. Feel free to reach out anytime to see how we can make your landlord journey easier. Managing rental property is a rewarding journey, but it's not without its challenges. If you'd like expert help or have questions, drop them in the comments or reach out to us at State Property Management. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with other landlords.